Devices to silent. And a big welcome to everybody. I'd also like to welcome those viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream this evening. If I could ask you all to please be upstanding, and Deputy Mayor Migdale, if you could please read out the opening prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name.
Amen. Councillor Dudek, could you please read the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, in which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect to elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. That brings us to item 1, which is the official opening of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 21st of November 2023 open at 6:31 p.m. Item 2, attendance and apologies. I have nil. Item 3, approved leave of absence. Councillor David Lagan has granted the leave of absence from the 10th of November 23 to the 2nd of December 23 inclusive. Councillor Elizabeth Ree has granted the leave of absence from the 7th of November 23 to the 6th of December 23 inclusive. 4, disclosure of interest. There were no disclosures from the Audit Committee meeting held 13th of November 23. Disclosure from the Community and Resource Committee meeting held 14th of November 23 are displayed on the screen behind me. Councillors, are there any other disclosures this evening? I do have one for item, it's the Rwanda Memorial, just declaring that I have met several times with the group and obviously attended functions with them. Any other disclosures? No. That brings to item 5, petitions. Item 5.1, we have received a petition regarding upgrades to a right-of-way between 9th and 10th Avenue in Inglewood. Councillor Migdale, would you like to table this petition?
Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I have received the following petition: upgrades to right-of-way lane between 9th and 10th Avenue in Inglewood. The following petition contains 22 verified signatures. It has been received by the city. We, the undersigned, petition to have the rear of way, right-of-way lane between 9th and 10th Avenue asphalted and lights installed like most of the other rear lanes in Inglewood. We have continued to wait and have been over-promised, under-delivered for when these works would be commenced. The petition has been forwarded to the Engineering Services Business Unit.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Item 5.2, we've received a petition regarding an objection to DA 23/117519 Chrysostom Street in North Beach. Councillor Kristovich, would you like to table this petition?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following petition containing 9 verified signatures has been received by the city. We as a community are against the approval of an Airbnb at 19 Chrysostom Street, North Beach. The landowner has been operating an unauthorised Airbnb for the last 2 years, and during that time we've had to deal with many issues and safety concerns for our families and the community, such as dogs barking and stressing every 2 or 3 days, yelling, screaming, domestics, unknown people coming and going every 2 or 3 days, guests using the home as a home water berth were overheard wailing for over 4 hours, with the owner not located on site to manage the issues, and the location is not suitable for an Airbnb, and this petition was forwarded to the Development Services Business Unit.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any unverified petitions this evening? There's no indication. Can I have a move and a seconder to accept those petitions? Move Deputy Mayor, second to Councillor Perkov. Apologies. And just a show of off to a great start. Show of hands just to accept those. That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and those responses from the last council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. So it brings us to item 7, which is public question time, and I'll invite Mr. Robert Mitchell, if you'd like to come forward and start us off. Bob Mitchell. Thank you. As you're the first one up, if you wouldn't mind just pressing that button down the right corner. Thank you. And your name and suburb to start us.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor. Robert Mitchell, Karrinyup. Good evening, councillors, council officers, public and ratepayers. Mayor, I draw your attention to the answer to question 2 of the questions I asked on the 3rd of October. I've highlighted where you say there are funds in this year's budget to repair the Courtyard East, adjacent to the Karrinyup Library Community Centre. The question was such. The Mayor advised there are 2 parts to this. The first one is the forecourt, and the Mayor acknowledged it is a mess. There is money in this year's budget to fix it. And there will be areas where traders can operate. Also, the flooding, mostly due to the roof, the Mayor further confirmed that a couple of months ago he put forward a motion that the City talk to the owners of the shopping centre about the future possibilities of redevelopment of those areas, and that must include the library and community centre. The City's commitment is that as soon as there are answers from the shopping centre, the City will put that in the public realm and let residents know exactly what proposals may be in the future. Now, I go back to my question. Why does the council have to dip into funds to repair broken and cracked and odd replacement pavers when the courtyard was sectioned off to provide space for construction activities for the shopping centre? Surely the council officers monitoring the site would have noticed the pavers and their want. Obviously they're broken by building logistics. Further, the condition of the site, including the vehicle parking area, council property used to the advantage by shoppers going to the shopping centre. Why does the council need the advice of the shopping centre? The property is Lot 3, Davenport Street, fee simple, owner, City of Stirling. Why not ask the shopping centre owners to resurface the car park? After the advantage use for 50 years. It is wrong that the current building is not put to further use, i.e. utilise the courtyard and kitchen and toilets of the community centre by providing a service module to the courtyard and access to the toilets for a leased opportunity use as an alfresco coffee and delicatessen area or similar.
Thank you for that question, Mr Mitchell. And there's a few things in there. The first one is we don't disagree with you. I think it can be used to a much better advantage. The issue we have is the building is at a state of disrepair in some points at the moment. So it's important we understand what the future of that whole site is, which is why we've engaged to chat with Karrinyup Shopping Centre. In terms of the forecourt area, all of the damage to those pavers, a lot of that predates any construction work there. All of those paving slabs are cracked and in a very poor condition. Some of the damage that was sustained in more recent time has already been replaced, but they are in need of a major overhaul of that area to make it so that someone would actually want to do what you've just suggested and operate in that area. As for the car park, there is no current plans to resurface a car park. It would only be taken if it was in need to be resurfaced.
So it just goes on and on. Okay, Mayor. I'll put question 2 now. Now, on 21st of November, as the federal government has changed the ratio for project finance on bipartisan government commitment, will the council now scrap the proposed trackless transport linkage between Glendalough and Scarborough Beach promotion? Obviously now the proposal will never get the tick in all our lifetimes and probably our children's too. The only reason you persist with this proposal that is not a responsibility of the City of Stirling is to promote medium-high to high-rise development as a trigger for opportunistic development to create a reason for infill development and force the government to try and act on a future public transport before it is inopportune and economically safe to do so, i.e. the current Scarborough Beach approval and construction of high-rise try to play catch-up with the flawed development approvals now. And I refer to the next question.
Thank you, Mr Mitchell. Look, in actual fact, it's the opposite. So, infill density is very different to the activity road corridor density that we look to see. The reason for planned density along corridors is to take the density out of the suburbs, which is the infill density you're talking about. It's part of the state
planned
government
density, but it's getting a bit of a push, isn't it?
It certainly is,
Yeah.
but it's towards
Yeah,
the
I
state government
understand.
planning targets, 3.5 million by 2050.
So
and
we're
to do
wasting all this money on this silly thing that you've got out the front.
you asked a question, let
Yeah.
me answer it.
Okay.
The federal
Oh,
government has funded the trial for the trackless tram. That we will not change because of the federal government stance on funding.
Yeah, it's an 80-20 ratio now. My third question. At the items 12.2/TE1 to 12.2/TE6, tonight's addenda are the results of public tenders without the accepted tender sums being declared. Will the council be declaring the results of the tender for parking, wayfaring on Scarborough Beach, recently advertised with a prime sum of $530,000? I asked at the last meeting what was going to go on there.
And thank you.
Here you are getting a tender in the paper. There's no information whatsoever for any ratepayer or anyone for that matter.
The city
And
is,
it's
the-
just ridiculous.
Thanks, Mr Mitchell. So the City of Stirling follows very strict guidelines under the Local Government Act for the way it procures through tender process. Those tenders do remain commercial in confidence throughout that whole tender process.
It's a public
Until they're
tender.
awarded by the, they're not a public during the process, they're commercial in confidence. Once they are awarded, they will be public and they will be published on the city's website and you will be able to see them.
Yeah. Well, this is obviously to try and improve parking there on Scarborough Beach Precinct.
Thank you,
As
Mr.
it is ridiculously chronic
Thank
and
you.
will get worse as the weather warms up.
Which
We
is,
know what's been happening
which is
out
why
there.
the
People
wayfinding is there,
parking
Mr.
on
Mitchell.
grass. Nothing's been done for years.
thank you, Mr
It's
Mitchell.
just a
Mr
merry-go-round.
Maisel,
Thank you, Mayor.
you're welcome.
Thank you, David Maisel from North Beach. On August 1st, 2023, at the council meeting, in reply to a question regarding Mr Darcy's, the Mayor stated, and I paraphrase, that it's not in the interests of council to prosecute and instead to work with the restaurant to achieve the best outcome for everyone. Given continued breaches which have been provided to the council's environmental team, does the Mayor still believe a strategy of proactively working with Mr Darcy's to be effective? And subsequently, how does the council intend to force the proprietor to comply for the benefit of all stakeholders? Once again, to state publicly, I support the establishment so long as they meet the conditions imposed by council, which I imagine excludes water berthing as well. So, thank you.
I think it does. Thank you for that question. I'll just get you a quick response. Look, in simple terms, I certainly do always support working proactively for a better outcome.
Sure.
It'd be fair to also say in this case it probably hasn't been the most successful outcome. I'll get Ms Lambaka to add a bit.
So thank you through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. Officers are still working through that investigation. I understand the team have been in contact with you this week
Indeed.
to give you an update, and the team are updating all the surrounding residents and to keep them informed. This has been a lengthy matter and we are proceeding to the next steps with this.
Appreciate the response. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thanks for
Thank
your question. Simon Wheeler. Thank you. Your name and suburb. to start.
Simon Wheeler, Scarborough. Good evening, everybody. Mayor Owen, with reference to the DAP application for a 12-storey development at 194 The Esplanade, the Department have confirmed that the developer contribution for this project under the Scarborough Beach Master Plan totals some $58,000, yet the public art contributions are assessed at some $300,000. Now, I'm all for a bit of public art, but you can't park on it. And I think the majority of that contribution would be far better spent on infrastructure and some more tangible community benefits. Now, it never stopped Development WA doing what it wished, but the prevailing planning scheme does not allow for such. But I think this application highlights several issues with the scheme that urgently need to be addressed. I've got a list. But my question is, does the city agree that this development highlights some of the deficiencies in the Scarborough Beach Master Plan and its development guidelines, and when and how will the city address them?
Yes, thank you. Ms Shears.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Wheeler, for the question. This is actually the city's first application that we're considering following normalisation in August earlier this year. As part of that process that we're going through and assessing these applications, it will come to fruition in terms of any inconsistencies or problems that we have with the planning framework. At the moment, the city's priority is local planning scheme number 4, which they've been working hard on finalising this year. Once that is completed, then we will absolutely be looking at Scarborough in terms of whether or not there's an opportunity to review this planning framework.
Will the Scarborough Beach Master Plan be included in the LPS4, or it's a separate thing still?
Through you, Mr Mayor, when we did normalisation process, we weren't able to actually make any changes. The normalisation process required us to bring it across as it is. It's quite a lengthy process, as you know, amending planning documents, so that's something that we'll look to in the next year's budget for normalisation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. Mayor Owen, on the 17th of October, I asked if the city could produce a list of exemptions granted by the Office of the CEO under Section 1.1 of the election caretaker policy during the then caretaker period. The answer was yes, and that the city was collating a response to be provided directly. I have yet to receive such a response. And as the Mayor is aware, any complaints in regard to potential breaches of the caretaker policy, surreally enough, cannot be made during the caretaker period, yet must be made within 1 month of an alleged offence, and that 1 month is up to date. I often wondered, Mayor Owen, why there were so few complaints to the City of Stirling. I think I begin to see a pattern. So I'll have to waste a question and re-ask my question from the 17th of October.
Thank you. And all I can do is apologise that you haven't received a response and ensure that you will get a response. Mr Wheeler.
Can you turn back time, so within the 1 month? Mayor Owen, Council Resolution 1023/010 of the 17th of October was moved behind closed doors, allegedly in accordance with Section 5.32b of the Local Government Act, which is a provision for an item relating to the personal affairs of any person. Subjective personal input aside, the subject of that resolution had nothing to do with the personal affairs of any person, and was for a matter that could, and in caretaker mode probably should, have been managed under delegated authority, as given it was a donation under $25,000. The minutes of the meeting give no indication of the subject of the resolution. A resolution that should, as a donation, be a matter of public record, unless the city prefers that its ratepayers not know where it is spending, how it is spending, or where it is spending their money. So my question is, Mayor Owen, were councillors made aware that there's no statute enabling this matter to be held behind closed doors, and that the item could have been handled under delegated authority without the need for all secrecy?
I'm comfortable that it was held behind closed doors. I'm also comfortable that the result of that resolution be made public. But at the time, during caretaker period, it was appropriate to hold it behind closed doors.
It hasn't been made public, has it?
I'm not aware, but
No,
I'm
it hasn't.
happy
Well,
to make it public.
Do you want to do that now?
No, I'll do it. We'll do the resolution correctly, so it's put in public.
Thank you.
Yep, happy to do it. Peter Ellis? Evening.
Peter Ellis, Corrine. Good evening, Mr Mayor. Good evening, councillors, hard-working staff and fellow ratepayers. Mr Mayor, can I be so rude and inquire that my questions could be answered on notice, please?
That's not rude at all, Mr Ellis.
Thank you,
Happy to
Mr Mayor.
oblige.
Can I refer again to answer one council meeting of the 17th of October, and can you please advise which regulation in Local Government Act 1995 permits the administration to change my wording in public question time for an employee's name to an employee's position and to claim standard local government practice while conforming to the requirements to provide a summary of questions?
It's in the sealed section, Mr Ellis.
Thank
We will
you.
respond to you in writing.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can you confirm that the minutes are accurate when my written wording of an employee's name has been changed to employee's position and actually increasing the number of letters and present the minutes as accurate for the councillors to certify?
It is accurate, but I can also respond to you in writing as you wish.
Fantastic, thank you. And can you please advise how much of the guidance system has been laid in Scarborough Beach Road in relation to the new tram operations?
There's no guidance system on Scarborough Beach Road, Mr Ellis. It's in
by
a
the
car park.
stars, sir, is it?
It's in the car park.
Fantastic, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland Hadley.
Good evening, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. Will
Sorry,
this-
sorry, and just before you start, I will rule, we've just gone over, so I'll rule to extend question time. Sorry, Mr Hadley. Continue.
Thank you. Will the CEO confirm that the Karrinyup Library is the most populous in the Southern Hemisphere? Or will he regard it as yet another ridiculous claim by the Mayor?
Mr CEO.
Through the chair, it's a very popular library.
Is it the most populous in the Southern Hemisphere, was the question.
Arguably.
We'll provide you the answer in writing to
Yes,
confirm.
we'd like to see written evidence of this, please. Thank you. More importantly, will the council seek ratepayers' views on the future development of this community-owned land and do it as early as possible? Building on top of the existing buildings is possible or adjacent is possible. News tonight that the library is in need of repair is news to many. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hadley. I would be surprised if it's news to many. I would think most people who have been shut out of it because it's been flooded over the last couple of years would know it needs significant work. It certainly will be made public. That's been our commitment to you from the start. It will be very public and we'll ask the community what they think of it.
Thank you. Question 2. With the financial demise of the futile trackless tram project, when will the ratepayers finally see the removal of this 3.2 million golden chariot?
Thank you, Mr Hadley. It should be here for a few more weeks. It's irrelevant about the federal government funding currently. The project that is currently underway is funded by the federal government.
Leading on from that, how much time and money has been wasted on fencing, lighting, security, realignment of roads and curbs, resurfacing of roads and car parks, cost of events, advertising, publications, overseas travel and accommodation, videos, conference costs, and who has been paying for the maintenance and running costs of this tram?
Thank you for that question. We'll respond to you in writing. You'll be interested to know, actually, the charging of that currently is by a couple of companies. It's been charged completely off the grid at no cost on our electricity, Mr Hadley, but we'll respond to you in writing and give you all the details.
Thank you.
That's
Question 3. Further to my
pretty sure up to about 4 already, but go on.
Well, we'd like answers as well, of course. Further to my attendance on the council meeting on the 17th of October, the Minister's office stated that at public question time, councils need to focus on the questions being asked, irrespective of how the questions are delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hadley. I think it is on public record how we deal with public question time, and we're happy to be judged on it. Are there anyone else from the gallery I haven't got in writing who would like to ask a question this evening? No indication. So we'll move on to item 8, applications for leave of absence. Councillor Tony Christovich has requested a leave of absence for the period 26th of November 23 to the 3rd of December 23 inclusive. Councillor Teresa Olo has requested a leave of absence for the period 26th of November 23 to the 3rd of December 23. Are there any further requests of leave of absence, councillors? No further requests. If I can have a mover and a seconder for those leaves of absence. Move Councillor Papard, seconded Councillor Hatton, and a show of hands to accept. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 17th of October, the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 31st of October, and the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 7th of November 2023. Move Councillor Christovich, seconded Councillor Hatton, and just a show of hands to accept those minutes. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Announcements by the presiding member. I do have one tonight. And I'm absolutely thrilled to share some very exciting news regarding our planning team's outstanding achievement at the Planning Institute of Australia State Awards for Planning Excellence Gala Dinner on Friday evening. In an amazing clean sweep of major awards, the City of Stirling won 3 exciting and prestigious awards. The WA Minister for Planning Award for Award in Planning Excellence. This coveted award was presented to the City of Stirling for the Fast Track Development Applications Project. The Minister provided the following citation. The City's Fast Track Development Applications Assessment Tool was recognised as a shining example of our commitment to cutting unnecessary red tape and streamlining the approval process for the benefit of the community. The assessment tool stood out as an innovative online service that simplifies the assessment and determination of small-scale residential development applications. The project was celebrated as a practical example of a local government supporting the state government's planning reform agenda to modernise and streamline development assessment. The team also won the Local Government Team Band 1 Award for Planning Excellence, and that was awarded to the Development Services Planning Team to acknowledge their hard work, dedication and innovation the team has shown in providing a modern and streamlined planning services. And the Technology and Digital Innovation sponsored by Development WA Award for Planning Excellence was presented to City of Stirling for the Stirling Fast Track Development Applications Project. The project team consisted of members across the organisation who all worked collaboratively to deliver the award-winning project. So I wish to congratulate the dedicated planning and development team led by the Director of Planning and Development, Amanda Shears, and former Director of Planning and Development, Stephen Roddick, for winning these awards. Well done to the planning team. That brings on to item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil, and 12 reports and recommendations of committees. We will now move on to those. Councillors, we will first deal with the item from the Audit Committee meeting. Nothing is required to be pulled out and no alternative records have been received. Councillors, are there any of these items that you do wish to pull out this evening? If not, I will go to the Deputy Chair of the Committee, Councillor Carlo Perkoff, to move those reports en bloc.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I move the reports of the Audit Committee from 13 November en bloc as a balance of reports?
Thank you. And that is seconded, Councillor Christovich. And if you can go to the vote, please, councillors. Can see you trying. Just help him out. Councillor Christovich. Just. Thank you. Help the new guy out, yes. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Members of the gallery and viewers at home, the remainder or all of those Audit Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution from Council. Councillors, we will now deal with the items from the Community and Resource Committee, noting that 12.2 F3 is required to be pulled out as has been referred to tonight's Council meeting. Item 12.2 TE2 has been withdrawn as per the memo that you received this afternoon and will not be considered at tonight's meeting. There are no alternative recommendations provided to governance. Are there any of these items that you wish to pull out to discuss this evening? Councillors. Councillor Dudek.
Hey, could I please pull out 12.2 CSA 1? Yeah, thank you.
You may. And I do have to pull out 12.2 TE4 as it requires an absolute majority. Let's go back to 12.2 CSA1, the coastal car park CCTV feasibility. It's been pulled out by Councillor Dudek. As chair of the committee, Councillor Perkov, if you'd like to move.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move the committee recommendation for 12.2 CSA1.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Migdal, is anyone opposed, or do you just have a question? You're opposed? Councillor Dudek's opposed. Is it a vote or you want a debate? Yeah. Councillor Perkov.
I'm happy to listen to the debate, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Migdal.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, this item we discussed robustly at committee last week, and ultimately it was agreed upon this is a feasibility study to investigate the financial cost and the what is required to implement CCTV at particular car parks in Scarborough. And one of the points that I raised was that as a woman, as I identify as a woman, but late at night when parked in a car park, as occasionally I do if I'm heading down to the beach for dinner or a cocktail, what have you, walking back to my car can be quite harrowing, especially in an area where there are lots of young people having occasionally a few too many. It's in areas it can be quite dark and foreboding. And I believe, it's my belief, that having CCTV, we know there's crime taking place in Scarborough, that we all, I'm sure, can agree on, but having CCTV and the signage on the outside of the car park as you walk in, I believe will be a deterrence to people, perhaps could make them think twice about any antisocial behaviour. I feel that not only is this appropriate, but I think it is necessary. So again, I did not get to vote on it at committee because I wasn't on committee, but I 110% support this as it stands in the agenda. I feel that it's a must, especially in our activated areas within the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dudek.
Thank you. And just to correct something from the Deputy Mayor, it's not just a feasibility study. This has allocated $165,000 from the next budget to put these CCTV cameras and licence plate recognition cameras in place. I will just start firstly by saying I believe that Councillor Kristicevich, in amending this motion at committee, has the best intentions and wants to see a reduction in crime, as we all do. However, I don't believe that permanently fixing CCTV and licence plate recognition cameras to these 3 car parks will achieve the safety outcomes we desire, and it could in fact just move the crime activities to the 3 unsurveilled car parks left. Now, firstly, I believe we need to balance privacy concerns here, especially when we are fixing cameras which can be monitored 24 hours a day, close to the beach where people are often underdressed as well. I think we should also be cautious of implementing a large amount of surveillance infrastructure that can be monitored by police and City of Stirling staff at all times without needing a reason or a warrant. Now, these could...
Point of clarification, can I just ask if the film would be used for any other purpose than if a crime was committed?
Thank you. I will just ask you to take a seat for a sec and just get Mr Mullins to provide some clarity, because I think this was answered at committee and I think it's probably a little misleading going down that path. Mr Mullins.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So any requests, to address that particular question, any requests are primarily made from the WA Police Force. So 70% of our requests are made under their legislation to provide that evidence. There are some other mechanisms to request footage through freedom of information requests and insurance, and they are all legal avenues that people can make requests for footage.
Continue.
Can I just say, I didn't say anything about requests for CCTV. It does have the capability to be monitored 24/7 by City of Stirling staff and police, I believe. But those questions, I think, can be saved for when it moves into debate anyway.
This is just,
When we move into questions, anyway, I think that question can be asked after.
no, this is your chance. But I think
These could potentially be used to enforce some future pandemic lockdown restrictions to see whether people are abiding by conditions such as limiting exercise to 1 hour per day. Now, whether or not you agree with that, I don't think it aligns with community expectations on what they believe these cameras will be used for. Finally, and importantly, I don't think we should be picking up the state government slack here and funding the policing of our state to the tune of $165,000. Especially in this cost of living crisis, I believe we should be choosing wisely where we spend ratepayer funds. The state government has the capacity to invest here with their large surplus. As such, I would like to foreshadow this motion with the original officer's recommendation from committee, taking out points 2 and 3, and instead putting in as point 2 option 1.
which was mobiles.
Council uses community safety patrols, variable message boards, deployment of mobile CCTV units, in collaboration with WA Police to address antisocial and criminal behaviour in the coastal car parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kristovich, I'm assuming.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Mayor. Look, firstly, I just want to say that this actually isn't allocating 165,000; it's considering it in the budget process. So that's the first thing. So we obviously need to do that at that point in time. Councillor Dudek mentioned the fact that there were 3 car parks that were excluded. The reason they were excluded is because they've actually got passive surveillance. So they're up the top, they're on West Coast Drive, people walk past, cars drive past, people live across the road, so people that can actually see those car parks, so there's no need, and of course housing there has their own CCTV cameras as well. So that part is pretty much covered. This is 3 car parks that are lower level where, you know, all sorts of things have happened in the past where there is no surveillance at all. And it's only surveillance of the car park itself, the parking bays and the recognition of number plates coming through. Also, I think what is very important here is that, from my understanding from speaking to Mr. Mullins, is that this footage is never accessed unless there is a crime reported. So effectively, and I just want to get confirmation from Mr. Mullins whether this information, this footage will ever be accessed by the city, and what process do you go through to access it?
Mr. Mullins.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So any request for any of our CCTV footage must be a legal request. So, like I said, 70% come from WA Police, who are authorised to ask for it. Any other request must be a legal request. They must have a power under legislation to request it from us. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
The point was, would there be any reason why any of our staff or officers would look at the footage for any other reason other than it being reported for a crime?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we don't monitor our CCTV 24/7. We will look for, if there's a crime committed, reported to the police, they ask us for footage, we will look for footage. The people that access the system are authorised by myself in my role as Manager of Community Safety to access it. Not all city officers can access the CCTV system.
So just a further question. So,
Sure.
so if the only way someone could access it is with your approval?
Mr. Mullins.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
Point of clarification.
What's your clarification?
Can it be accessed without
Councillor
approval?
Dudek, to me.
Sorry. Through the Mayor, can this be accessed?
Sorry, just you stand up, you sit down.
Apologies.
That's right.
Can this be monitored 24 hours a day? I think was the question that was asked.
Yes,
So
sir.
is it possible to be monitored by City of Stirling staff?
Yes. Yes, but it's not, for those reasons that have been said. Yes. Councillor Kristovich.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And obviously the resources required to actually physically monitor CCTV cameras would be huge and a massive cost. The other thing, just to go on about whether it's a state government or a federal government responsibility or local government, we obviously do lots of investment in CCTV cameras. We've got mobile CCTV cameras, we've got them in Scarborough, we've got them all over the place. We work in collaboration with the police. You know, unfortunately, yeah, the state government doesn't come to the party all the time with these things, but the community expects it, and it's a very small investment for a high degree of security in an area which is one of the most used parts of the City of Stirling. The coastline is the most active part of the City of Stirling. There are people there day and night. There are all sorts of activities taking place. We're talking about areas that are not monitored, that have no visibility from the street, and anything could be going on down there. So it's just a bit of safety, as the Deputy Mayor indicated, for women, for children, for elderly, for just everybody in general. And it's not perceived as a big brother, and I wouldn't perceive it to be that. It's just really about when a crime is committed, we can access the footage, and that's the only reason I would see the footage would be accessed. And if there is some sort of flexibility there, then we need to shut that down to make sure that can't happen, but I'm pretty sure it can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to debate? Councillor Hatton?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Maybe not a debate, because I'm hearing some more positive things. I am still anxious about this on privacy matters, particularly any surveillance in the daytime. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Nighttime, yes. The question I'm going to ask, well, actually, I'd just like to indulge one more moment. There's 6 car parks, 3 are passive, as Councillor has said. They don't need any monitoring. There are 3 blind car parks. Yes, at night time, I believe it's critical that we do probably have surveillance there. I am still worried about the privacy in the daytime for normal mum, dads and others just going there and wanting to have that freedom of the beach and relax. Can I ask, with the monitoring of these, where are these cameras going to be linked up to? Will they be doubled up with the Scarborough monitoring system, or will they go to some other base? Can I please have some information on that?
Thank you. It might be too early for that. Mr Mullins?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So we haven't considered how we would connect them up. They wouldn't necessarily be connected to the Scarborough cameras at this stage. We do prioritise sites for connecting up to WA Police, and as an agency that we work with closely, but at this stage, yeah, we haven't considered the networking of these sites.
And in follow-up, that's sort of what worries me, is that the transparency, although there are processes to go through, which Mr Mullins has expressed, and I'm very happy with those processes, but I just feel uneasy about it, and I'm still in two minds about daylight monitoring in particular. Nighttime, I wouldn't like my daughters going down there at nighttime without surveillance. In the daytime, I think it's the Aussie thing to do, to go down there, go to the beach, go up the car park, get a deck chair out maybe, have a few yarns for an hour or two, as do my mates who surf down there all the time at that one particular beach, actually. I don't think they want to be on camera. But what I'm hearing is that they won't be on camera and they won't be surveilled. It's only if something happens. Is that correct?
I think let's be very clear. I can't even count on both hands how many cameras are in Scarborough. So for all the reasons you're talking about for these other areas, like Scarborough's under surveillance. But let's be really clear. If you look at the map that's in the council, I just want to make sure it's not surveilling the beach or any of those areas. This is very specific in the car park. And the monitoring surveillance doesn't go into the ether. It'll either go to the City of Stirling, into the offices on the first floor, or into the Scarborough precinct, into those monitored TVs, which the staff are only accessing if there's a request for it.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, in reaction to what you said, I've looked at the angles at the car parks in the report. Yes, I'm satisfied that the angles don't go down to the beach and don't probably impinge on people's privacy other than at the car park area. I did say at the Community Resources Committee meeting that, yes, general surveillance in hubs and precincts, no problem at all. But down at these rather private beaches in the daytime, that's my conflict that I have. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Councillor Olo?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question to the officers, how many crimes are actually committed in this car park, and is it through the day or is it not? Because my concern is small crimes are committed through the day, not so much at night. And yeah, so how many crimes are actually committed through the day?
Mr Mullins?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So we requested crime data from the WA Police. They mentioned at committee they had challenges obtaining that data due to the way the property land parcels are marked out there in the GIS system. We have the same issue, so we're looking at ways to be able to drill down into that data into the future, but they were not unable to provide us any direct crime data for those specific car parks.
Councillor Dudek, do you have another question? Was that you was indicating before?
Yes, sorry. Just one final point that
You don't get to make a point. You can only debate once, but you can ask a question.
Can we clarify? As was just said, we don't know what networks this will be hooked up to, whether or not it will be hooked up to the Scarborough monitoring precinct as yet. And can we just get one final answer on whether or not it can be monitored 24/7 if a City of Stirling security staff member that was authorised to wanted to.
Thank you. Mr Mullins.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So, yes, it can be monitored 24/7 by an authorised licensed officer of the City of Stirling that I authorise to access.
If there's no one else who wants to debate, I'll go back to Councillor Perkoff if you'd like to close debate.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thanks to the councillors for their points of view. Interesting thing is with camera systems, these days alarm systems, the greatest advantage of the whole lot is that they actually work as a deterrent, not so much as a tool that's constantly used for what you think it might be used for. They're actually more so of a deterrent. And I believe that overall community safety will always trump some individual concerns of privacy. So as Deputy Mayor Migdal was saying, I'd like to have safety for the kids, for the community, whether it's night or day. Really, is it that relevant? I'm not sure that anyone's going to be the I'm the watcher sort of guy and doing these nasty things, pointing the cameras in the directions as the officers have already indicated. So I'm more than happy to support the committee's recommendation.
Thank you. And with that closes debate. So I will put that item to the vote. If you can go to your votes, please, councillors. Thank you. Councillor Hatton, we got. Yep. And that is carried with Councillors Corrado, Ferrante, Giudice, Kristovich, Migdal, Olo, Papard, Perkoff, Thornton and myself voting for. Councillor Dudek, Hatton and Proud voting against. Thank you, councillors. We'll go on to 12.2 F3. This is Scarborough Metropolitan Underground Scheme, the MUS project. An absolute majority is required. This was referred because we needed that attachment. That's the reason it was referred to committee, to council tonight. Can I have a mover? Councillor Proud is happy to move that. Councillor Kristovich is happy to second that. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that to the vote. Thank you. That is unanimous. Item 12.2T2 has been withdrawn. And item 12.2T for the tender for the fire detection and emergency. Again, needs an absolute majority, so that's why it's here tonight. Mover of a motion, councillors. Councillor Proud, seconded Councillor Ferrante. Is there anyone opposed? I'll put that one to the vote. Thank you. That is unanimous. That brings us to the balance of reports. Councillor Perkoff, again noting that 12.2T2 is not as part of that balance of reports. Would you like to move the balance?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd absolutely like to move the Community Resources Committee reports 14th of November en bloc.
Thank you. And that's been seconded by Councillor Proud. And I'll put that one to the vote. One to go. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Members of the gallery and viewers at home, please note that the remainder of those Community and Resource Committee recommendations have now been adopted by exception resolution. And we move to item 13, which is reports for consideration in accordance with section 4.24 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law. And the first one of those is item 13.1, the application for the Rwandan Quebecer Memorial on page 238 of the agenda. Do I have a mover of a motion? Councillor Proud.
As per page 238.
Moving the officer's recommendation. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Corrado. Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Dudek. Thank you. Councillor Proud.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This came to us in late October. There was a couple of emotional deputations at committee, heart-rendering, and also at full council the following week. I fully support, and it was a unanimous decision, recommendation that came from committee to council, and then it was held over. This is an entirely reasonable request by the Rwandan community. You've all read the report. I think everybody knows who's over 12 or over 20 perhaps, knows the history of the genocide back in 94. The Rwandan community have made a very reasonable request for a memorial at a very most appropriate place, the Stirling Memorial Gardens, where there's many memorials for different theatres of war, etc. This is entirely appropriate that they would put it there. We have over 3,000 Rwandans in the community in the city of Stirling, and there is absolutely, in my opinion, no valid reason why you could possibly refuse this. The costing to the city is $2,000 for the preparation. The remainder of the cost, around $30,000, will be funded by the Rwandan community, and I wholeheartedly support the recommendation that I've just moved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crowder, you seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The points raised by Councillor Proud are all valid. The fact is that, yes, this did come to committee, it was debated, and it was passed unanimously. It was held over, and as was very rightly pointed out by the media, we had no real particular reason at that time to hold it over because it had no significant impact on City of Stirling's budget, but for some reason it was held over. And we are sitting here again after 2 deputations have been made to this council by the community, and their expectation, of course, was that we would be going with the officer's recommendation. So there are a couple of reasons to consider installing this. One, a lot of the community members are approaching this from a trauma-informed aspect, and all they are seeking is a place to come and remember and commemorate people in their families and what has happened in the past. The other reason that they are seeking this is because, as they said in their deputation, it's difficult for them to go back home to celebrate this, and City of Stirling is now home to them. So they are seeking a small patch of land, which is not an enormous cost to the city, and the community is willing to raise the funds to establish the memorial, to maintain the memorial, and ongoing, it's going to be their responsibility. So considering these 3 aspects, that one, the officers did recommend after doing complete due diligence on this aspect, we also had a change in our policy to support this kind of establishment of a memorial and requests that come from the community. Thirdly, we unanimously decided at the committee meeting before the election that this would be passed. For not a particularly valid reason, it was held over, and after 2 deputations. So it's almost as though we are again debating this point. So I fully support Councillor Proud's motion, and I fully support the officer's recommendation for the installation of this memorial in this instance. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dudek.
Thank you. And I want to start by saying it's been great to have the Rwandan community attending meetings and pushing for this memorial in the city of Stirling, representing their community with great passion that they have. I also do wish to acknowledge the suffering of themselves and their families in Rwanda that happened during this horrible war, and the beginnings of which were brewing before I was even born. So, unfortunately, however, I think by accepting this proposed memorial, it does open up the door for many community requests for monuments that acknowledge their own community suffering. These requests can often be for contentious issues. We've seen the troubles that councils over East have encountered in navigating the issues for the Israel-Palestine conflict, and I think it's something that federal government is better placed to deal with. As such, I believe that we should endeavour to help the Rwandan community liaise with the federal government to find an appropriate place for this memorial. And as such, if I do want to foreshadow this one as well, if that's possible, just with option 3 from the report, which was to investigate a place memorial at Stirling Civic Gardens, allowing universal reflection for those experiencing loss and trauma as an alternative to the establishment of a Rwandan Kwibuka memorial.
Sure, noted.
Yeah, leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perkoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't a part of the committee. Councillor Crowder mentions I did vote to defer it at council following that. I do not believe it is the right thing to do in this place and time. When we talk about Rwanda, as Councillor Proud mentioned, it's Rwanda, but there are three ethnic groups. The group proposing the memorial is one of the ethnic groups who was involved in what initially started as a civil war, actually in 1990 first up, and then it settled down in 93, then started off in 94 again, following some assassinations and so on. The interesting thing is the United Nations, which is mentioned in our report here, they were, as they always say, they're politically compromised. They did nothing much at that point in time. So they worked together with the Belgian government, French government, US government, and pretty much decided not to do a great deal. It's interesting that in that space, they didn't want to sort of, I suppose, compromise the sides, the different sides and so on. And yet here we are, we're debating about how we're actually going to compromise, believe it or not, one of the other ethnic groups. So I absolutely would like to support Councillor Dudek's foreshadowed motion. If we're going to create something like this on behalf of all people who are suffering and suffered in wars, genocides and so on, that we do it, make it universal, make it for everybody, so everyone can appreciate the space. If there's anyone here that understands a little bit about the UN and being in a war zone, that'll be myself, where I spent 3 years, exactly these same years, but somewhere else in Europe. And let me tell you, doesn't matter which side you're on, there's going to be political pressures, there's going to be compromises, there's going to be, you name it, there's not going to be a right or wrong, and you know what, in the end, there's not going to be a winner at all out of any of this. I'm troubled by this. I'm troubled that we're going to potentially vote on something which is going to, in fact, highlight one ethnic group of one country over the other two ethnic groups that also exist in that country and the surrounding countries around. I absolutely sympathise with anyone that's had family and friends and so on in wars and so on. As I said, I've seen it firsthand. This will create problems. In my opinion, Mr. Mayor, councillors, this will create problems which we are not probably prepared to deal with, particularly in the light of some of the recent events around us. If this is to be built, I wish it was not actually placed in the public space of City of Stirling Park and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Migdale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's interesting debate that we're having tonight, and for those who are following international news at the moment, certainly interesting what's happening in our world. There's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of division, which I feel is an absolute travesty. I, for one, before anything else, identify as Australian. I'm Australian, and I'm very proud to be Australian. I went to a high school in the ward that I represent, Mount Lawley Senior High School. There were over 100 nationalities at the school I went to. Just imagine that for a minute. Over 100 nationalities in a school of about 1,800 kids. All of us had a background, a history, a family history. Many of us had a background from a country that was war-torn, came from families of refugees. My mother was born in a displaced persons camp. I get it. We all have a story. When we get to Australia, I was born here, luckily enough, or when we take citizenship, we are Australians first. That does not entail rejecting and forgetting the past, your history, what makes you you. We are all individuals who come together in this big melting pot that we call Australia. We love Australia. We support the rule of law, and we welcome people to come here and make our community better. That's what we stand for. I would never expect people to give up their history and traditions, their foods, their language. I just would never do that. And a part of their generational trauma and suffering from whence they came should not be rejected either, for it is what makes them them. In approving this tonight, we are saying as a council, we get it. You have a history. Your people have suffered. We respect that, and we encourage you to remember that and to move forward. To move forward as an Australian with the understanding that we respect your past. We respect what makes you you. We all have a different background and history, but tonight we are accepting the history of a people, their trauma, their background, remembering, of course, as Councillor Criado stated, the City of Stirling is not paying for a monument. We are simply acknowledging that residents of the City of Stirling have suffered, would like to pay for and have a monument to visit and meditate and recognise their past. And we are saying, you know what? We agree with you. And if 5 people come forward from different communities and suggest the same thing, I will certainly, absolutely, unquestionably, without doubt, be saying, I agree, recognise your past. We respect your past. We respect you. Right? That is it. No question.
Thank you. Is it Councillor Kristovich?
Yeah, look, I just have a couple of questions to ask of the officers, if I can.
Sure.
In terms of these memorials, if all of a sudden dozens of ethnic groups approach us with similar sorts of stories, will we be approving these sorts of requests? And secondly, if, for example, in a particular conflict, there are 2 opposing ethnic groups, and they both want a memorial saying the other side committed genocide against them or committed atrocities, would we be considering putting both of them? Because the only thing I'm concerned about is where is this going to lead to? And as long as we have parameters.
I can help you out with that one. And the simple part is I don't know any other ethnic group that in our modern history had 1 million people slaughtered in 100 days.
But I'm not talking about this one. I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about there's current conflicts going on.
Council endorsed a policy.
Yep.
Memorials policy. So tonight, it's important we note, Council isn't deciding whether we build a memorial. We're not deciding any of that. Council endorsed a policy to have a memorial policy to allow memorials. What we're deciding tonight is to endorse this one, which has gone through that same policy and approval process. So any other ethnic group, if they had a significant population, has to pass all those different criteria. They would have to have a significant base of population within the City of Stirling. They would have to have a significant reason for a memorial. They could apply through that policy and then it would be assessed by the officers for that same reason.
And so just on that point, what's a significant population just in the City of Stirling? Is there a particular number that...
Well, I think it would be relative.
Yeah.
I don't think there's no hard pass rule. You guys actually endorse their policy, but it's a council decision. So you're right. Is that entirely a council decision whether you endorse this?
Because I'm obviously very supportive of this. However, I'm just concerned about what we're opening up and where we're leading ourselves. And I'm not sure I understand that personally. And I don't want to be the person here judging whether someone deserves a memorial or doesn't, because I'm not equipped to do that. Or, obviously this is a unique situation. And there are other unique situations in the world as well. If the Ukrainians came here tomorrow and said, we want a memorial, or the people in that part of Russia want a memorial, I don't want to be the one judging that. That's the only problem. I don't want to be the one saying no. And so I'd like, I suppose, some concrete clarity about how we manage this, especially if there are 2 sides that have different arguments and we just, that's the only thing I'm concerned about. Not the more, I'm very supportive of that. I'm supportive of Councillor Dudek's alternative motion of having a more general one. I think that's a safer way, only because I don't know at this point in time. I don't think I'm in the right position. I wasn't here, obviously I was away when that last meeting was had. To be honest, I haven't done enough to understand where this could lead to.
Point of clarification, sorry.
What's your point of clarification?
Could I please,
Councillor Christovich, just take a seat.
through the chair, please, could I get comment on this versus scenario from officers?
Beat me to it. I think it's important. What we do is give clarity, because again, I don't think the expectation is that councillors do all the research on this. It is going through a policy, and the reason the policy is there is so officers do a robust investigation and then put a recommendation to council. But I get Mr. Quirk to provide some comment, just around your questions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So look, importantly, the policy was amended to ensure that officers assess any such memorial requests, and that the specific wording in the policy is that has significant relevance to the city or the local community. And that's then the role of city officers to look at the extent or the number of people from that cultural background that reside within the city of Stirling, and the merits or the details of the event or the memorialisation at hand. Obviously, this particular request is around the genocide. That is obviously not specified in the policy. A request for a memorial could be for a variety of reasons. When the officers did assess this request, two things stood out. First of all, the extent of people from Rwanda and from Central and East Africa that reside within the city of Stirling, but also the extent and the scale of the genocide that has been confirmed by the United Nations. And the official name for that genocide is the genocide against the Tutsi, where between 800,000 and 1 million people did die. And it's that scale plus the extent of the Rwandan community in Stirling which form the strong basis for the officer recommendation.
Councillor Christovich, you're still.
Thank you very much. So in terms of, I suppose, if other communities come and ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to the officers, would we be making the same recommendations, I suppose, if there were a significant community, it was a significant event? And how do we determine, is it a significant event? Is it the United Nations that determines that, or is it a nation in itself that determines that?
Point of clarification.
Let's
We're
not,
talking about hypotheticals here.
yeah, but
What if?
no, Councillor Proud, I'm happy for the question. The questions to the officers, I think it's a fair question. Mr. Quirk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, quite simply, every application will be assessed on its merits in accordance with the policy. It's our role as officers to investigate the community, investigate the request, and then put that frank and fearless advice in front of council. But we're very mindful that these will or may be difficult resolutions or decisions for council to make. So we will always ensure that robust advice is provided to council upon which they can make a well-informed decision.
And just the last question, I suppose, in terms of the decisions we make around this, do we have any consultation with Foreign Affairs and Trade, the federal government, any sort of that at that level? Because obviously we're making significant decisions which impact nations and communities, not just within Stirling, but in Western Australia, potentially Australia. And so I'm just wondering, where do we get our advice from? Is it just ourselves internally, our own research online? Or do we actually speak to others, the consuls or the diplomats and other people?
Mr. Quirk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, that will obviously city officers have many connections and networks across multiple cultural groups and government agencies. On this occasion, it wasn't actually required to do a great deal of research because of such clarity around the atrocities that has been proven by multiple agencies, including the United Nations.
Thank you, that's all.
Councillor McDowell, you've indicated for a question.
Thank you for allowing a question, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask if there's anything in the policy that it's not a concern, but a question rather around the actual memorial plaque. I would assume it wouldn't focus on who fought who, but rather these people died at this time as a result of unrest. Do you understand what I'm saying? There shouldn't be any versus. This is not about creating angst. This is about a memorial. It's memorialising people that were killed, which I feel is fair enough.
Thank you. Mr. Quirk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm, and one of the attachments does actually show the memorial and the wording on that memorial, and it certainly references the genocide against the Tutsi, but it does not mention the other two ethnic groups from Rwanda.
Councillor Perkoff, you've got a question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do we know out of the, because we have mentioned a Rwandan population community, do we know how many are on each side of those two ethnic groups currently in Australia? Because in Rwanda or Burundi, it's about 1/6. 1/6 that the other, I'm not going to mention all the names, that the other group is in fact the larger group. So you would assume if someone has gone out to some of our suburbs and asked the question, are all the Rwandans going, yeah, well, this is a great idea to have one ethnic group?
And the simple answer is they are all Rwandans now.
Well,
they are all Rwandans. They're not classed as ethnic groups anymore.
If I may indulge, then what is the point of actually putting one ethnic group's name on there? I would just really want like the councillors to support a monument that will just show us that there is no division anymore. That it is Rwanda, in fact, for all of them.
Thank you, Councillor Perkoff. Is there anyone else who'd like to debate? If not, I will go to Councillor Proud. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hatton, were you indicating then? Sorry, I missed.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my hand was just behind. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, again, conflict. I truly believe that the Rwanda community needs to be recognised with a memorial. I don't believe it's the job of the City of Stirling. I don't believe it's appropriate. I mentioned earlier at a committee meeting that I had a fair bit of dealing when I was a Member of Parliament with the Rwandan community, historically, some years ago now. And I attended a lot of their functions, and I did have a tear in my eyes many times too, as you did, Mayor, and you mentioned that yourself. My niece was in a compound in Rwanda, working as the only white person in that compound and walking 3 kilometres to teach at a girls' school for 2 years out of Kigali. I have a number of craft pieces from Rwanda brought back by my niece, who worked for United Nations at the time. I feel a bit of a connection, and I feel a lot of deep empathy for the cause. But I believe that this is a state or a federal issue. If I was still the state Member of Parliament and the group of Rwandans came to me, I would fight and fight and fight for our state government to pursue it. I believe it should be centralised in possibly the CBD, where it's universal for everyone, including tourists and visitors. Most of the sites that you will find where there's memorials are such sites in Perth as the Bell Tower, the War Memorial, State War Memorial, Elizabeth Quay, Pioneer Women's Memorial, the Barracks Arch, places like that. They're central CBD. I just don't think that at our local park is what we should be considering. I think we're stepping a little bit outside of, and we might be creating unintended consequences where I'm leading to, as Councillor Perkoff has mentioned. But I want to state categorically, I am in full support. If I was still a state Member of Parliament, I would say we need to do this. I just don't think that we need to do it with the City of Stirling. I don't think it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's Councillor Hatton has finished, so we'll go to Councillor Proud to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That adopting this might leave it open for other groups to ask us. To that I say welcome. Welcome to all of them. The City of Stirling is a multicultural society. We have many, if not the most different cultures, and we brag about our Guinness World Record of the amount about the most of different cultures bashing a drum. We're really proud of that. We sell that. And here we are, hypothetically, wonder if another group will come, or the enemy of, or whatever. I don't understand. I go to the Stirling Memorial Gardens 4 or 5 times a year. There's many different theatres of war that we commemorate, and we sponsor them, and somebody, the mayor goes, or somebody represents him. And I can go to absolutely every one of them, and I can go to each of those memorials, and I can actually share pain with, you know, the fall of Singapore, Vietnam veterans. It could be any. A couple of years ago, went to Japan. I went to Hiroshima, and that is the most tragic thing I've ever seen. If somebody asked us here, a Japanese community, I would certainly welcome that too. We've got lots of Japanese people here. I mean, God damn it, why are we separating things here? Honestly, I cannot believe we're even discussing this or debating it. Let's put it.
Thank you, and with that, that does close debate, so I will put that item to the vote. Thank you, and that motion is carried. So for Councillors Corrado, Ferrante, Giudice, Kristovich, Migdal, Olo, Papard, Proud, Thornton and myself against Councillors Dudek, Hatton and Perkoff. Thank you, councillors. To those members of the Rwandan community here, so that has been approved. So the officers will be in contact with you. I do want to make note, I know that was hard probably for you to listen to, and you know, on behalf of all the council, I apologise that you have to listen to that in an open debate. But I do also applaud council. It's important that council are true to themselves and debate something in terms of their feelings, and in that way it's brave for them to be able to speak out as well. So I ask for your understanding in obviously the discussion they had to have then. We're now going to item 13.2, the appointment of community members to the Environment Advisory Group. Do I have a mover of a motion? Councillor Thornton.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation on page 262, please.
Thank you, and that's seconded by Deputy Mayor Migdal. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that. Thank you, that is unanimous. Item 13.3, Design Review Panel, member appointment. Do I have a mover of a motion? Deputy Mayor Migdal. Is there a second of... Oh, you're moving the officers?
Happy to move.
Yeah. A second it. Councillor Giudice. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that motion. Just got one to go. Who we got? Councillor Migdal. Just your vote, please. Thank you. That is unanimous. Item 13.4, the appointment of alternative member to the 30th of November Mindari Regional Council meeting. Thank you. Move Councillor Kristovich. Seconded Councillor Proud. Is there anyone opposed? No, I'll put that. Thank you. I might just note for the new councillors as well that was one you might recall. With their regional councils, Mindari has a constitution that says if the sitting member can't attend, then the council have to approve the alternate member, even though we already know who the alternate member is. So that's why you'll see that come up. That takes to item 14, which is notice of motions for consideration. So I'll start off with 14.1, the proposed notice of motion from Councillor Thornton. Your motion.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the alternate recommendation on page 137.
Thank you.
Oh no, it's not.
That a report be presented to council by May 24 regarding that one?
Yes.
Yep. Great. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Olo. Is there anyone opposed? Just a question or?
Perhaps just a comment. I was already working with officers regarding this, and I would really have loved to have a chat with you because.
Sure, but this has been on the table for a while now. This is.
Okay, so I'm talking about in the last sort of.
So, Councillor Proud, you can take this offline. But this is a motion that's come back from a significant amount of time ago, from like 3 months ago, during the caretaker etc. period. This is just coming back for that report. Yeah.
We can still chat.
So no one's opposed. So let's put this to the vote, and you can have a chat after. Thank you. That is unanimous. Item 14.2, the proposed notice of motion from former councillor Felicity Farrelly on West Coast Highway pedestrian crossing. Councillor Papard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my maiden speech.
No, it's just you don't get to speak yet. What's your motion?
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
I move.
Let's just remind you, you got elected to council. You didn't make parliament. Yeah. now, what's your motion?
That the city request Main Roads WA to reconsider the amount of time given to pedestrians to walk across West Coast Highway.
So the officer recommendation.
No.
Yep. It's just a normal recommendation that was written there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take a seat. Is there a seconder? Councillor Kristovich. Is anyone opposed? No, we'll put that to the vote.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, great speech.
An anti-climax.
Thank you. That motion is carried with Councillor Hatton voting against it. I will go to item 14.3, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Olo on Herdsman Lake Regional Park. Councillor Olo, your motion.
Thank you. I'd like to move page 296, notice of motion regarding that the Mayor writes to the Minister of Department of Biodiversity and Conservation and Attraction requesting the state...
That's enough.
Oh,
Yep.
do I move
No, that's all right.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Councillor Thornton is seconding that.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'll put that one. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that to the vote. Okay. Yeah. This is, I have to declare, this is my favourite time of meetings where you just give me work to do. It's fantastic. Item 14.4, Councillor Ferranti, has been withdrawn, I believe. Councillor Ferranti?
Mr. Mayor, this has unfortunately been withdrawn. I'll rework it, but I'll be back.
With Xavier. Thanks, Councillor. And item 14.5, the proposed notice of motion from former Councillor Felicity Farrelly on the Calais Road safety. Councillor Papard.
Could I hold this over as well, Mayor? I think to give it due consideration.
You'd like to hold it over?
Hold it over, thank you.
To meeting at the beginning of next year?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yep, seconded Deputy Mayor. We'll just go to the vote on that. And while we just wait, yep. So if officers could just coordinate between the coastal ward councillors to maybe have a meeting with former Councillor Farrelly and just go through that, that'd be good. And go... That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That's held over to the beginning of next year. Item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillor Papard, on your maiden speech.
The real one.
With passion. This
the
is
real one.
So no one's heard it before, so read it out with passion. That's as good as you're going to get tonight.
I don't have much of an audience there, do I? I
There's
should have brought my mum along.
330 viewers on the live stream.
I should have brought my mum along. All right, I move that. Given that 18 months has elapsed since Council last considered this matter, Council requests the City prioritise planning of a new raised walkway between North Scarborough and South Trigg, giving consideration to environmental impacts, protection and amenity, with a report to come back to Council in March 2024 with timelines.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other notice of motions? Councillor Perkoff? Yeah. That's all right.
I haven't got it here, Mr. Mayor, but there it is. Thanks. Thank you, Governance. The city investigates the installation of further... Actually, there's only one so far. Bird waterers to provide more water sources for local bird life across the city of Stirling. And the reason for this is...
No, we don't need the reason.
You don't need the reason?
No.
Oh, the decrease...
It's clear. It's up there. Are there any other notice of motions?
No, you haven't done one.
I'm pretty sure it's already been done, hasn't it? Are there any others? There's no indication. Item 16, questions by members of which due notice has been given. I have nil for that. There's no urgent business tonight. and there's no matters behind closed doors. That brings to item 19, councillors, which is closure of the meeting. So I declare the meeting closed at 7:54 p.m. Thank you for watching and good night to those viewers at home.